Hello, everyone. It is May 30th, 2015, and I am Jonathan, your host of Radio Tokyo. And with me again is Nick and the ever fashionable Danny. And today we have some wonderful topics to discuss. So, yeah, guys, how are you today?
I'm good.
Yay! Nick, still there?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm alright. Hello, everybody.
You got kind of quiet. We were worried about you.
My
Or
No,
dog
we
was
weren't.
visiting me.
your daughter's visiting
My
you.
dog.
Oh, I was going to say, I've known you for over a decade. Oh, wow, almost a decade now. I didn't know you had a daughter.
No,
That
I
was,
do have a goddaughter who is a lovely, lovely young little girl, but no daughter.
John, don't lie to him. We weren't really that worried.
she's kind of right. It's true.
I know, it's fine.
I mean,
I,
you can say those things for the sake of the show, but don't lie to him. That's just not right.
I appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I mean the effort's there.
One, so.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Anyway,
let's see. What did we talk about last week? I forgot.
we
World of
talked
Warcraft.
about World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, I remember now. That brings up an interesting point because I have been spending a lot of time, reading and listening to what people like as from Heel versus Babyface and a bunch of other folks on the internet have to say. The reason I said him, and I can't think of the names on the top of my head. I'm sorry. Wait. Lazy Peon, Asmongold, and I forget who else. Anyway, I'm sorry. I actually want something about him this morning, talking about objectively the how much objectively the end of Mist Pandaria was compared to the beginning of Warlords, and it kind of blew my mind. But a topic they've all been discussing is flying in Draenor itself, and this time I even checked. I had the name right. This is not me misremembering. It was Ian Hazakostas who decided to say that there will be no flying in Draenor at any point in time, and that Blizzard has decided that going forward from now, uh, flying will only be available in non-relevant zones. So let's put that into perspective for Draenor right now. You have Shadowmoon Valley, Frostfire, Talador, Spires of Rock, Gorgrond, and Nagrand that are available right now. And we can't fly any of them. However, in, say, a month and a half or so, when 6.2 comes out, Tenon Jungle will be where everyone will go to. And the content there, from what I understand from people who have actually been on the PTR and been playing it, you need to be able to fly because there is shit everywhere and it will kill you. Oh, but that would mean, with the player base that's left, trying to find something that's relevant, everyone would be in Tenon instead of being in the Grand or Shadow Moon, wherever else everyone else is. So that would mean the only, zone in Draenor you couldn't theoretically fly in would be Tenon, because everything else is irrelevant, but we're just not going to get that, apparently. And apparently we're never going to be allowed to fly again.
Which kind of defeats the purpose of them releasing all of the mounts in the Blizzard store, because most of them are flying mounts. Almost all of them are flying mounts. They make so much money off of those mounts, off of the premise that you look really cool when you fly. So they're just taking those away.
It's really weird to me because, on one hand, I actually do prefer the game when I'm on the ground. But at the same time, I do miss flying.
I like being able to fly up to the ceiling and dropping down to a pool of water and hoping I don't miss.
I like flying and then dropping down and just bubbling. Be like, bam.
That's fun too.
Blizzard actually had a little bit of a foobar with this, and I say that with all respect possible because I like Blizzard, and I know all of us do too. But their most recent store mount, the Mystic Runesaber, all of the promotional footage for it and the still photographs and everything showed the rune saber as flying in Draenor,
Yeah.
specifically over Shadow Moon Valley. And about this, I think it was this morning or last night, somewhere around there, Blizzard actually went back and redid. Oh, excuse me. Went back and redid everything for it, specifically the uh, um, the still shots of it, and it is now on the ground in those same zones rather than flying.
It makes
Hmm.
it seem like not everyone on the team was aware that the flying thing was going to stop.
It's
I
And
mean,
that's not a good
weird.
thing. I think the whole team should be on the same page with where they're going with like features like that. And that kind of shows like, oh, well, not everyone's in the main loop about what big decisions we're making, or maybe somebody higher up made a call and they're just sticking to it and no one else knows what's going on. That
that's
seems
not.
unprofessional.
It's not necessarily surprising though, considering the expansion that they've had for the WoW team.
Well,
There's a
it's not
lot
surprising
more.
that it's like that, but it's still.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot more people working on WoW right now than they've ever had in the past. So
I think it's like 135 people are working on the game right now, and I'll be completely honest, and this is something I've said I don't know for how long now. Draenor is becoming kind of a letdown for me, which which made me think of what I was mentioning earlier, the video I watched about how much the end of Mist Pandaria was actually better, and you know up until the Crasserang Wild saying it was kind of iffy on what was going to happen. But then
I
we
actually
got
like the
the Isle of
Terracing Wilds.
Yeah,
was
I
that
like the Terracing Wilds. I think it was a pretty decent area, but I do agree that up until we had that PvP area and more of the story moving along, it was just kind of iffy.
Yeah, it was really slow,
it
and
was. But
uh, it's always
we
been a weird thing though. Is the first raid, the first tier of any expansion has always been a little iffy, slow.
But I think that's why we still have to give it time, like I said before, because I mean, they're not progressing at the same rate that they did for the last expansion, but I mean, they are releasing like a brand new zone. I mean, Kerosene Wilds wasn't a new zone, but they kind of repurposed it. So instead of repurposing an old zone that isn't technically an old zone because it's brand new, they're gonna just give us something completely new. And maybe once it hits, live and they do a couple of hot fixes or like minor patches to fix their fuck ups, it might turn out to be pretty decent. But
Yeah,
that's assuming.
do you mean new in the respect that it's an Apex's crystal grind and we get to go kill different things for them this time?
Hopefully, something interesting. You
Because
never know.
that seems to be what everything in Tenon is. But what I was going to say that was in the video is um, we eventually got Isle of Thunder, and I know people hated Isle of Thunder. It was long, it was boring, it was incredibly depressing.
yeah,
Uh, but yet you had a raid which was contained in that zone, and the story was driven not by group scenarios, which was not anything else which was not like anything else that was done before with scenarios, which I kind of miss. I kind of miss scenarios, but
I
you had
wonder if they'll like actually make any new ones, like something more driven for you. Because I mean, there's the proving grounds that you have to do to get into raids and heroics and stuff. But
I never really was that interested in group scenarios. It just never particularly caught my interest.
group
I just think it's
scenarios are fun.
interesting because they're little bits of story that you normally wouldn't get or you'd have to guess at.
I think it's more because if I wanted to do something in a group, I'd rather be in a dungeon, instead of in a scenario. Also, the group makeups were usually weird to me because it was like, uh, usually I want to be a healer, but usually people wanted to be free DPS, and then I didn't like not having a healer around. I don't know.
Yeah, but
You,
they kind of wanted to make the scenarios more of a thing where it didn't really matter what your comp was, you could get through it. But I noticed that going through some of the scenarios, like you definitely needed a healer for some points because there were just points where there were a lot of trash and you had to clear and there was just like you would die and it was like, well maybe
Yeah.
this non-roll thing isn't really working.
Yeah, I think that was probably my biggest problem was the lack of roles. Um, like if they just made it one healer and two DPS or a DPS and a tank, I think I would have been much more interested in the scenarios.
And
But
just because
just
it wouldn't have been such a hassle to go through.
yeah, because if you have three DPS, yeah, sure, it's fun, and you can be all, oh, I'm so elite and stuff, but eventually something screws up, and then everyone gets mad, and it's just meh,
Nowadays when people get mad, they don't really say anything about it. They just leave.
pretty much.
And there's
but
really no debuff if you're in there for longer than like 10 minutes, so
that
no
was one of the
punishment.
things that was actually fixed. Like I mean, again, this is what was in the video, but I agree with this. Blizzard fixed the whole scenario issue because they took it, from this three-person group where it doesn't matter what you go in as, you're all fine. Even though those of us who did it regularly kind of hated it.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What they fixed with the Isle of Thunder was to have the story-driven, personalized scenarios where it's just you, and you go in, and you may or may not have some NPCs that'll help you, but you
Yeah,
do
the
these
personal
things that
scenarios
help
were really
progress the
cool.
story.
Yeah, those were really cool, and I'd like to see them do more with those.
Yeah, definitely.
It would be awesome if they did it,
Yeah,
but
because it brings back the importance to the main to you as the player character.
it does. It really does. And it also does another thing that most people overlook about the Isle of Thunder. Your server had to help. If you didn't have X number of people every day doing X number of things every day, the phasing on the island would never happen. It's like um, Encourage or something like that, where the server has to participate. You have
Hmm.
to. If you don't, like no matter how bored you get or whatever, it doesn't happen. But Blizzard managed to solve the boredom issue with that by having the option of being of doing PvP dailies, which were always a lot faster but more dangerous because there was always someone who was going to stop you and doing that or doing PvE dailies. And if you didn't want to do that, well, you know what you can do? You can run around and kill, I think it was like 10 or 11 rare spawns on the island. And if you're a warlock, you're better off because those rare spawns will drop the green fire quest, which leads you
Hmm.
to one of the one of the best class quests that's in the game right now or ever. And that's saying a whole lot about class quest because now we have the helm that we can get and we have the weapon at least the weapon at level 20, the helm at I think 50 or something like that, and it's kind of like a little small bone being thrown to those of us who were around, like me who did the charger quest twice, did the warlock mount one, that
Hmm.
those cool things, but that's kind of what the green fire quest reminds me of. And you know around that same point in time, we had the Isle of Giants, which is if if you wanted to just go kill things all day long, you could do that. It was fun, and hunters got to go there because hunters got to learn to train a different type of pet, and that was cool. And they had the Zandalari Warbringers that were bought in. It was fun. It was actually entertaining, and it was a hell of a lot better even by the time you got to the Timeless Isle, which was still that little sandbox type thing where you can do whatever you want to, throw it all together. That was still a lot better to me than logging on X number of characters and going click 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 click, and
Yeah,
that's all we seem to be getting thus far this expansion.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's only so far. And I mean, Blizzard is known for having kind of iffy starts and strong finishes, so I think we just need to give it time. With
Also,
faith.
back on the subject of mounts, I think that one very big problem that Danny brought up is if they're going to take away flying, the store mounts should be more focused on ground mounts than flying mounts.
Yeah,
It
because like
But
the
see,
higher level people only are going to be in the higher level zones. Like we're not going to be flying around Azeroth. So like, what's the point of giving us mounts that we're not even going to be able to use to their full potential?
Yeah, it's really confusing to me. It's like if you're going to be selling these nice shiny mounts, and they are shiny mounts, I would like to buy some, but money, obviously.
see,
Um,
like the thing is to me, like the Mystic Rune Saber, it's account wide and it scales with your writing skill, and that's cool. I like that. But what that means is that from you know level 20 onwards, unless you have the the BOA chauffeur chopper, from 20 until what 90 now, you get to ride around on this exact same mount, and from level 60 until 90, you get to fly on it, and you can fly everywhere. And if you're lucky enough to be able to get a hold of the BOA flying in Pandaria, you can fly in Pandaria from 85 and don't have to wait until 90. But then you go to Draenor, and it's like, God damn it! This mount that I've been flying around on the entire time, all of a sudden I have to ride it, and it's boring. And it's almost the exact same effect to me as taking stuff like, oh, I don't know, Dragon Hawks and anything that actually hovers off of the ground and saying, look, you can fly 5 feet off the ground, because that's what we're getting is you can fly on your dragon hawk. It just hovers there, which is cool, I guess. If this is Warcraft 3 and you're a dragon hawk rider in the Blood Elf campaign and saying we're now flying at a comfortable 25 feet.
mm, I mean, I really think that, and this is just me, but I really think that riding on the ground gives you a better gaming experience than flying does.
Well, yeah, because
Unless,
then you're not flying over all of the content, and you miss a lot of the art and a lot of, all the details that went into them making this when you just fly over it. And I think the artists were getting a little tired of people not appreciating what they had made.
not only that, but I think if you're going to do flying effectively, there was one place that I really loved being able to fly, and that was because the zone was specifically designed in mind for flying, and that was in the Storm Peaks and Ice Crown in Northrend.
Those are places you need to fly. If you can't fly, you're not going to get around in either of those zones.
Exactly, and that's where flying is interesting because it's okay, I have to fly. Like this zone is designed for me to fly in it. But a lot of the zones for Cataclysm and just Pandaria, I never got that feeling that it was except maybe the what's the zone with the mountains that we climbed, John? John?
With the you mean
In
in Pandora?
Pandaria. Yeah, the mountains.
Kunai.
Yeah, in Kunlai Summit. That was the
Mm-hmm.
only zone that I felt like, okay, I want to fly here.
And they haven't really introduced a place like that since then, except for Warlords, the, what is it, Frostfire area.
Yeah,
That is a
for
place where you feel like you need to fly just because of how treacherous the terrain is.
yeah, that would be a place where I would want to fly. Other than that, I'd rather be on the ground going for the zone because that's what it feels like the zones are designed for. They're
Yeah,
designed for
every design, like all of the zones in this expansion are designed for the ground except for that one.
yeah, which is weird, but pretty
Well,
much.
Shadow Moon. I'm sorry, I like Shadow Moon Valley. It's beautiful. I
It's
would rather
boring
fly. I would rather fucking fly
because
over
there's nothing
all
in
the
Shadow
lava and
Moon.
everything there because it's boring. It's like going out, to West Texas or somewhere, out past where all the trees are and it's all flat and open. It's boring. It's beautiful,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
nice to look
boring.
at.
And if there was any particular zone that, I could say I only want to fly in this one zone, period. It actually would not be Shadow Moon. I take it back. It would not be Shadow Moon. It would be Fires of a Rock. I hate that zone. I hate it with a passion, specifically at night. I mean, it's beautifully done. I love it. I love the music there. I love the storyline. I love the way everything looks. But what I hate is getting around it because it's just these little twisty paths and everything, and there's bunch of trees that obscure all the light. And if you go there at nighttime, it is the it's almost disturbing to me to be there at night because you can't see anything. Like I mean, I have to get really close to my monitor if I want to see anything because it's that dark and I can't figure out a way to brighten it up at all.
That's just because you're going blind.
Probably, but I would rather be able to fly over all of that than have to ride the. And I think a lot of people feel that same way. But part of it for me, is not just because I'm actually now that I think about it, flying would be preferable because if you think about the storyline of the zone where you're dealing with the Arakoa and the ones that you're allied with, they can't fly. They can't see their home from above the air. But the other ones, the bad ones, get to fly, which is kind of neat to think about
Yeah.
now. And now that I at least acknowledge, that the Arakoa don't get to fly there. But I, I'm sorry, I would rather fly because it's just seems a lot easier to get around, and that actually kind of makes me sad because now I feel like I'm an Arakoa outcast.
Well then, but then that's good level design then, because it makes you feel like part of the environment, part of the resistance movement, and that's what I think riding underground brings to you. It makes you aware of the environment. It makes you a little bit scared, a little bit because the you don't know what's around the corner. You don't. There could be some giant monster, and it's like, oh crap.
Yeah, and especially like in Ice Crown. Like if you look at the way Ice Crown is laid out, like there is just this big circle around the castle that you can't walk through at all because there's elites everywhere and there's just legions and legions of Scourge. You can't walk around in that area at all.
Nope, not unless you become super OP.
Hmm.
You kind of could. It took me the longest time to figure out that there actually is, excuse me, a way you can, like, if you're only on the ground, there is a way you can ride around most everything there. Like, you can only get around about halfway across the zone, but if you start in uh, uh, the forest below Dollar on Crystal Song, remember it's called? Anyway, if you start there and you ride up the pathway that goes up to the initial
Yeah, there's a little crack in the thing.
yeah the what the hell is that place called? The Arden Crusade Camp.
Yeah.
If you follow that same general pathway through the little rift that you're supposed to fly over in the quest with the dragon, I'm trying to remember this. It's been a long time since I did it. Anyway, there's that little Scourge Town thingy there where you have the fantastic quest where you build the actual Origin encampment, like up on the hill and everything. Uh,
Hmm.
but you can ride around that little undead area, and there's a pathway that you just follow, and it's just snow and ice for most of it. But then after about a minute or two, you run into the scourged whelplings and the dragon stuff over there that they're being raised up around where the tournament is, and you can follow that up more up into the little daily area, and then somewhere past that, I forget how far over it is, but you get to be about where those big cathedral, well, like the it's not the Cathedral of Darkness, but it's the buildings up at the northern part of the zone that look like that. Somewhere around in there is where the drop off point is, but you can literally ride around half of Icecrown that way, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, but you
Right.
have to go through so much research to try and trial and error to try and find where it is you can be on the ground.
You could ride through the Scourge, it was just you had to basically have endgame tier armor and weapons and stuff
Yeah.
to be able to just plow through it. That was pretty much the only way you were going to get through.
it took me quite a while to even find that pathway, and the only way I found it was actually flying over it. I just happened to notice it, but I mean, like it, it
But
it's a
yeah,
unique experience,
but
and
that's what I mean. That zone is designed for flying. Even adventuring on the ground, you can only really do with the ability to fly over it to look at it. And that's something that they haven't brought to Draenor. I mean, some of the zones are a little annoying to ride through, like maybe Gorgrond is a bit annoying, Spires is a bit annoying. There are some annoying parts to ride through, but really they're designed for being on the ground. I've never felt like I need to fly
Yeah,
in
which is why they
any of
really
the
need to
zones.
make these storm mounts more aimed towards the ground. It's like, if that's the
Yeah.
direction you're going, then stop teasing us with things that we really can't have.
And they've had horses that can fly without wings before, so
Yeah, almost every mount that you get from promotions, like from Hearthstone and from Diablo, all of those are flying mounts. Even if they don't have wings, they can fly.
mhm.
I have a winged horse that I like to fly on sometimes.
Yeah.
Ass.
Oh, I I like Invincible, but oh wait, actually that makes me think about something. Speaking of Invincible, um, I meant to bring this up earlier, but Kung Fury. I don't know if either of you have seen this or
Kung Fury!
yeah, Kung Fury. That is the most amazing thing I have seen, I think, in my entire life.
It is the
And,
greatest thing ever.
whoa,
God
what
bless
was
you.
that?
Shut up. No one asked you.
That was an adorable sneeze, that's what that
Shut
was.
up! I will burn down your houses.
That
Well,
was super adorable.
it,
I
it
will
actually
burn down your houses.
it actually was. It was a cute sneeze.
Burn down your houses.
Uh,
Anyway,
but yeah, Kung Fury is the most amazing thing I have ever seen, and I'm including looking in the mirror.
wow.
Way to poke your own ego there, huh?
Yeah, but it's awesome. It's really like it gives me all these incredible um happy what's the word people use now, feels. Yeah, it gives me a lot of feels to watch Kung Fury, even though like on repeat viewings, I will admit I've watched it about 3 or 4 times back to back, and it's like a half hour long, and like it gets a little bit repetitive, and you get to where you can look away from it. But every time I watch it, I still see something I didn't see the first time, just like some little tiny detail, and it makes me appreciate how much effort was actually thrown into making a half-hour long short film that got enough money that if they wanted, the people who did it wanted to, they could have made that a feature-length movie, which would be amazing. And I really hope that there is a follow up to it. Specifically, it it's so hard to talk about this because I know everyone hasn't seen it, and I don't want to spoil it. But it's really super well done, and just
Also, it feels so awkward to hear you say the word feels.
well, thank you. But it's like a whole field trip for me. It's like I am on the Magic School Bus on a field trip, not a field trip, but a field trip.
Well,
It's cool.
the way I would say it is it captures everything great about the 80s. Like, every
It actually
single
does.
thing great about the 80s that we love. Even the things that are just corny or cheesy, but they're just so much fun that you can't help but love it.
I
Well, you
think
see, I'm a 90s baby, so that really doesn't.
But do you love any 80s movies at all?
Um, is Labyrinth from the 80s?
Yes, I
yes,
think.
I like Labyrinth.
Did you probably find some joy in this?
you would. You actually would. The oh man, the I think the greatest reaction out of it. We'll see. Okay, I say this because initially, I saw the trailer for it, and I saw the David Hasselhoff music video for it. So like I kind of knew what to expect, but the first thing that really, really, really hit me super, super hard was, and this is without spoiling it. Um, there's a part early on where it's an action sequence. I mean, the whole movie's an action sequence, so that's not saying much about it. But you see that this little play button icon in the top, and the word play starts flashing, and then you see tracking at the bottom, and you get static and stuff. It's like watching a VHS tape, and I missed that so much. That was just a, a cool feeling to me to watch this, and it's like, oh my god, where's the tracking button? I gotta fix this.
I remember when I was little, I used to take the cases the VHS would come in, and I would bite on the little things that held the tape in place. I just really liked to bite it. I would sit there with that thing in my mouth and just watch the movie and bite it. I was a weird kid.
Memories. I I miss stuff. I mean, it was annoying as hell then to do it. It's like getting up and change and actually having to press a dial and change the button or press a button, whatever, on turn a dial and press a button. What the hell am I saying? Anyway, on the TV, to get every channel. But just watching Kung Fury just was like, I miss my childhood, and like I'll be I'll be 33 in August, so like just to be able to reimagine myself as an 8-year-old getting to watch something that future generations look back on and say, "What a piece of shit! Look at that animation on like Transformers or something like that." Because I'm sorry, compared to what we can have now, a lot of that older animated stuff is it doesn't look as good, but
It
it's
doesn't
just
age well.
it's the level of emotional reaction that uh, I had to that, and it was cool, and I missed that.
It's a movie for 80s kids or anyone that grew up on 80s movies, basically. And, which I did. I mean, I was born in 86, but I'm more of a 90s kid than an 80s kid, but it reminded me of all the fun I had growing up watching the classic 80 movies, the action movies, the cop movies, uh, the weird fantasy stuff. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, and with technology nowadays, kids are never going to have the kind of trouble that we had having to rewind the tape to watch it from the beginning. You have to sit there with the remote in your hand and listen to it rewind, and you have to hope that it doesn't go so fast it burns the little pieces of tape in there.
I honestly miss rewinding. I don't know why. I miss rewinding.
I think it was just the sound and just how satisfying it was to do it.
That's like how I miss dial-up, just for the sound of connecting.
Like that,
That's the greatest sound ever.
it,
And
it,
younger generations will never have that. They'll never know what it was like to struggle with that kind of shit.
oh,
And
the joys of
having to get off because someone needed to use the phone.
Oh god.
But yeah, like Kung Fury just does that for me. It just reminds me of the past and how awesome things at the time, were.
And
It really made me think back to watching, and I've gone back and watched this, but one of my favorite programs when I was little was the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and I've watched it on Netflix now because Netflix is the thing we have now in the world today. Hooray! But I've gone back and watched it, and I just look at it and I'm like, God damn! I ran home every day to watch this, but
I
then I
mean,
find myself 8 episodes later, like, no, no, don't do that, no, no. It's amazing. It's cool.
I mean, it's one of the things about the '80s was just everything was so over exaggerated. Everything. It was just so big and so huge, and you it was silly. It was really, really silly when you really thought about it, but it's just refreshing after all of the dark, gritty stuff that's going on, or fashionable, I guess, now, or how everything has to be super realistic. It's just a lot of fun to go back to that age where everything was just big and huge, and you didn't really care if it made sense.
Yeah, because it
You
made
know,
sense in its own way.
you mentioning things being dark and gritty. The whole reboot thing. That reminded me of something else that I watched this past week. I don't know if either of you have seen it, but like I brought it up before about how there are little videos leaking from the Suicide Squad movie.
Hmm.
Um, there was a video released this past week of the Batmobile because apparently Batman's in this. I do not know if
I think I
if
saw a still shot of it. I don't think I've seen the video.
oh, there is a video,
I'm
and
very excited for this.
Oh,
I'm very, very
I think
excited.
when I went to look for the video, they had taken it down already. That's what happened.
yeah, it's down, but you like okay if you go to YouTube and you look, you will find it.
Hmm.
It's there. I promise. It's the most amazing version of the Batmobile we've seen in a long time, and I think part of that is because looking at it, okay. Look, looking at this is sort of like watching Kung Fury. It reminds me of so much cooler shit. Um, it's not the Tumblr, but a lot like okay, visually you get a distinct Tumblr feel to it. It looks like it has like armored plating over it and everything. So you kind of get that, but it's a long car. It's a thin car, and the front wheels are
Yeah, it
they're
looks more like the classic
they're
Batman
on little
car.
struts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
looks
looks like
more
the
like.
way it's supposed to look, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, the Tumblr was cool, but I didn't think that should have been Batman's regular ride. I put it like that, you know.
Yeah.
That
Because
should
the
have been like.
Batmobile is like his signature mode of transportation. Like most superheroes can just fly, but he has to have a car, and it has to be that car.
Yeah, I mean, the Tumblr was. I liked the Tumblr, but I thought the Tumblr should have been more for going, when he has to go fight or something.
Or like a really high speed chase. Like something that he can leave the Batmobile in an instant to catch up to somebody, but that shouldn't be like his only mode of transportation.
Yeah.
do you remember Oh, which one was it? Um, I want to say it was the Batman Forever Batmobile. One of those Joel Schumacher ones. I don't remember. Anyway, it had these little like struts on the front of the car at the front wheels, they were not built up inside inside the vehicle itself. They were positioned out, sort of like a racing car.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I do.
That's what the front of this Batmobile looks like. It's got little stuck out wheels that will turn, like a race car. It's cool,
And I
but
think that's what Batman really needs, though, because when he's chasing villains, he needs to be able to turn on a dime, and regular cars with the wheels tucked under can't do that.
Hmm.
he does. But like it's beautiful. I mean, long car, thin car, armor plated, and it gives me a, I guess visceral is the right word here. I'm thinking of reaction seeing it because it reminds me of the 1989 Batmobile in a lot of ways,
Which
and
I think is the classic Batmobile now.
Yeah.
it is. It, like for a lot of people, it is because when people think of it, they think of that. Like like to me, because I've seen the 1960 series, I think of that one, which was a beautiful car at that point in time, and
It
believe it or
was.
not, will actually outrun the 1989 Batmobile. It is a hell of a lot faster. It's
I'm not
cool looking,
surprised.
but like it reminds me of that, and just like specifically the profile view of the car, the side view. It reminds me of the one from Batman the animated series, specifically because the top of the car, it doesn't have the that slide back thing that the animated series one did, where it would move and Batman could get in the top. It has these, they're almost like gull wing doors on a DeLorean. Oh, it's beautiful. But like the little canopy will open up. Okay, okay, if you hold your hands out in front of you and you press your thumbs together and your index fingers and your middle fingers are together, and then you open them up, like you just press your thumbs one another and you start rolling your hands. That kind of will give you the image, of what the door does. It just opens up, and then you have these little points that stick up, and then you can get in and out of the vehicle. But behind that is, um, if you remember the animated series one, like the top down view of it, there was that part on the top of it that looked kind of like it was Batman's head, like the ears,
Hmm.
Hmm.
like his logo. That's what's on the back of this car. It goes back to these 2 points, it's beautiful, and I love it. It makes me think of all these older Batmobiles that I miss, and it's cool.
I
But I'm a.
definitely. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Dina.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Ladies first.
Really, really, really. Fine. Anyways, no, I was just gonna say that I like for the most part the look of the Suicide Squad. So what I've seen so far. Although not so much Will Smith's outfit. I don't know why. It's just it's looking kind of weird to me. But
Yeah, that
You
one
know,
looks a little weird.
You know, I completely forgot that Will Smith was even in this movie because I'm honestly more excited for Jared Leto's Joker and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn than I am for anything else. And
Now,
now,
see, that's where I'm going to stop you because I like the casting for the Joker and Harley Quinn, but I want them to really emphasize the point that their relationship isn't romantic in the slightest. And I don't want there to be any lovey dovey scenes where the Joker is like being like a sensible person towards her. Like, I think the like for that relationship to not seem like
because
out there, like it needs to follow how he's
it's an
awful to
abusive
her.
relation. Yeah, it's an
It is.
abusive
It's really
relationship.
abusive, and it needs to follow that. It needs to follow the idea that he doesn't give a crap about what happens to her, and she's too brainwashed by him to notice.
well,
Hmm.
see, there is a another clip that has been leaked. It's the filming of the scene, and all you see in there is this. kind of a purplish vehicle, and it's her. She hadn't yet adopted the persona of Harley Quinn. She's still Harleen Quinzel. Like blue shirt. Her hair's hanging down. She has glasses on. It looks like she just got out of work, and she's holding out a gun. She goes, "Get out of the car!" And the door opens, and out comes Jared Leto's Joker, and looking at him, oh my God, it's like um, the Alan Moore Joker from The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, it's short hair, pale skin. The makeup is perfect. I'm not trying to knock Heath Ledger or anything, but like like
It's a much more classic look.
it is. Like I mean, it's very not demure, but that's the best word I can think of off the top of my head for the way he looks. I mean, his clothing is kind of flashy, but he looks like he walked directly out of that comic, except for not having a white suit. It's not solid white. What I saw was just kind of ivory colored, I guess. But anyway, he gets out of the car, and I don't know, what leads into this, but um, Harley Quinn is standing there and she's talking to him, and all you see is Jared Leto from the back. It's weird. It's like watching the animated series Batman, with just those animations where he, where he'll kind of roll his shoulder and throw his hands up, and will just gesture a lot, just like it's like, baby, it's okay, honey, I love you. It's just exaggerated hand motions, and all you see is her just kind of staring at him like, yeah, this is the same thing you said to me last time. And then all of a sudden, some guy walks up behind him, and she just reaches up. She has a gun in her hand. She reaches up her hand and shoots him, and the Joker just keeps on talking. Like, watching that, I sincerely hope that is how it happens in the rest of the movie. And it's weird to acknowledge this, but that is the only abusive relationship I actually want to see portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
And
weird.
it's
Like,
so carefully done, though. Like, they make sure that you know that it's wrong, and they make sure that you kind of see her realizing over time that it's wrong, and
Well,
then the Joker just not caring.
I think the difference between that and, let's say, Twilight or 50 Shades, because those are most obvious examples, is that it's not romanticized, and that would be the worst thing they could do to it, is if they try to romanticize it.
Yeah,
As
nothing
long
about that relationship is romantic, and romanticizing it would ruin what that relationship
well,
is.
I,
exactly.
I think, and this is weird saying it to me, I think the romance between the Joker and Harley Quinn is actually found in the fact that it isn't romantic. She,
No, I would. That's a very bad way to think about it because
it, I know, but hang on. It's it, it's like Romeo and Juliet. People say, well, Romeo and Juliet is a story about love. Yeah, it is, but you're talking about this incredibly juvenile level of understanding of what love is, and it's like, I would die for you. I would die for you too. And that's what I get out of the Joker and Harley Quinn. And looking at the way they're portrayed, as it's progressed, because Harley Quinn's been around since what, 95 or so. I forget what year she was created for the animated series, but the story's changed over time, and now with the New 52 reboot, you have her, still being Harleen Quinzel, and she's still in love with the Joker, but she's starting to realize as a character that he's probably not okay, and it may just be a really really bad idea to be involved with him. And looking at it, like it's the Romeo and Juliet reaction, which is where I see the romance. Early on, the Joker may not act like he gives a shit about her, but you can tell that he does. I mean, he never again, this is strange justifying this, but like he never kills her or anything. Now I mean, he shoved her out of a window and slapped and everything, but he's never actually killed her. And I
That's
think,
true. And
and
he
I
has killed pretty much every other one of his subordinates. She's
yes,
probably the only one he can tolerate. But
yeah,
it's
I
also because she allows him to, be, she allows herself to be his anger outlet.
I
it's it's
I
it's
just
it's it's,
don't.
it's
I don't think you can say Joker and Harley Quinn and say romance in the same sentence because when I think of romance, I think of actually caring for the other person. And Joker may have kept her as a subordinate, but it was never really out of romantic interest. It was just she was there, she could take it, and he could
but
use her.
And she was overly willing, which she
Yeah,
made very clear.
but
it, but that's not that's not romance. That's not romantic. That's just
but
either lust or just yeah, that's just lust.
But I mean, it's also established they're both a little mentally unstable, so I think that plays a big part in their quote unquote romance because I don't think until really later on that Harley really realizes that she's in a bad situation.
I think romance is just a bad word to use because romance implies love. And while Harley may love the Joker with all of her heart, he clearly does not love her back.
see,
No.
I think again, I can only bring up Romeo and Juliet for this because
But we
that's
can't.
where
That's not a good analogy because
it's the only one you can make. It's
well, no,
literally
no.
the only
But
one you can make.
but the difference there is that Romeo and Juliet, as far as we know, obviously they never got a chance to develop their love or anything like that. But they had mutual interest.
I think Joker has some kind of mutual interest, and I think
I,
that's why he gives in to some of her
I would
attempts
say
to romanticize him.
I would
But I
say the
don't think
Joker's
it's like,
only interest is to use her.
yeah, I think it's more
Like,
like she's available, so he's going to use her. And I mean, I don't think it's anything like relationship. It's more of like a master slave kind of thing.
Pretty much.
but like to me, I don't think it's fair to say that there is no love between the two of them because if you look at it, just from purely just a purely analytical point of view, there's two people the Joker has never killed. He will go out of his way to hurt them in unimaginable ways, but he's never killed them, and that's Batman and Harley.
Well, I
Ever.
mean,
He's never
Joker is
gone
pretty
far.
messed up mentally, so maybe that's just his way of showing his affection. Because, I mean,
But
if you really look at it, I think the Joker considers Batman a friend rather than an enemy, just because he has so much fun messing with him. But he'll hurt him and he'll bring him to the brink of death, but he won't ever kill him because then he loses his fun. And it's the same thing with Harley. If he kills her, he loses his fun, and he loses the loyalty and just like
Yeah,
this subordinate who loves him and in his own sick way he has feelings for her, but they're not like a normal person's idea of feelings.
But see, this is where it bothers me, is that that's the argument that someone in an abusive relationship will make about why they stick around with their partner. This would be the perfect um, thing in, say, Twilight or 50 Shades to say. It's that, oh, that's just his way of showing me that he cares about me
But
or
that's
he
perfect
loves
for
me.
the relationship because it is abusive.
Well,
yeah,
yes,
That's the idea you're supposed to get from them, you know?
but but
and
the difference is if we say that's romantic, if we romanticize it, then we're glossing over the abuse.
I'm okay. Look, okay.
I don't think it's that we're glossing over the abuse. I think it's the point that we understand why she's still there.
I okay. I am not. in any way saying that I think abusive relationships are wonderful. I'm really not. Just so that's perfectly clear. I think that there is everything possible wrong with Harley Quinn and the Joker being involved. Like everything wrong on every possible level. But just looking at it again, the only romance I can see is that Romeo and Juliet type thing because you have to see it that way. If you look at it any other way, you realize exactly what's going on, and that's why I brought up, you know, with this being 20 some odd years of this relationship existing in whatever form or another. Initially you have her where she's like a puppy and she follows him around no matter what. I mean, like a puppy, you can kick a little puppy and it will come running back to you because it loves you more than it loves itself. But after they started the New 52 storyline, where she got the bicolored hair and everything, they started to make it a little more realistic. And there was a panel I read a while back. Uh, it, I'd have to go find it, but it was Harley. I forget who she was talking to, but she was talking about how she's realized, the Joker is not really okay, and she was talking about the storyline that I think a lot of people don't really know is that Harley's had a child, and it's the Joker's kid. It's
Hmm.
this little girl, and she took her girl and ran away from him for I think like 5 years. And when she came back, it was basically, this is your kid. Don't hurt me because you'll hurt the kid. And that's around the time the Joker cuts his face off. And it's weird to me, to know that that's going on, and then to realize, you know, Harley has accepted that the Joker is bad. He's bad for her, and he's damn sure bad for Batman and Gotham as a whole. But yet she's gone back to him, and I really kind of wonder, because I know people who have been in abusive relationships like that. Like it makes me wonder, you know, why does she keep going back to him? Particularly now that she's realized, I mean, she's had her taste of freedom. She knows how much better life can be, but she keeps going back to him, and that's why I think deep down inside, you know, it seems like she knows something about the Joker that no one else does, and
Well, see, as someone who was in an abusive relationship, I can tell you that it's not because she saw something deeper or because like once you realize that someone's a bad person and you want to get away, it's like, okay, I really need to get away. But there's a point where your abuser has made you they've brainwashed you into thinking that they're the only person that you need in your life, and if you don't have them, your life is going to fall apart. And what
It's
happens is
basically
it's like an addiction almost. Like you can't you want to stop but you can't.
it's that they become uncomfortable without the abuser around.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's like they don't know how to function without it because it's just become their normal. And
yeah,
like they've been told that it's their normal and if they can't function without it. So it's you it's not that there's something deeper within the Joker that she sees above all else. It's just that she's stuck between her own willpower and what she's used to. And sometimes it's just easier to stay with what you're used to rather than trying to be on your own just because this person has told you that they're all you need, and if you leave them, you're nothing. And because
it's
they brainwashed you, you believe them.
it's Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
it is, like again, I'm not trying to say, that I think this is perfectly okay, but just like it's interesting because, and this is the single most important thing I'm going to say here. These these are not real people. Like if we were talking about real people, there would be no way I would sit here and try and justify their motives at all. But that's why it's fascinating because
Well, but
it's
I think,
It, it, it,
uh, well,
it's
sorry. But
it.
I think that we need to treat them like real people because people view them as real people, even though we clearly know that they aren't. They're
And they give people
reflection.
in those kinds of situations somebody to relate to.
Yeah, and they're reflections of real people. So, and this is why I really heavily emphasize, and why I dread movies like 50 Shades or Twilight or something of that nature. It's because it gives people a sense of justification of saying that, okay, this is normal, this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, having it
And,
portrayed in media and being shoved in your face and having it like glorified and all of this advertising and all this merchandising, it just gives a bad impression saying, hey, this is okay. But when you
and
look at a relationship with the Joker and Harley Quinn, like you start out going, oh, well, this is kind of weird. It's really not okay, but they seem okay. But then over time, Harley comes to the conclusion that it's not okay. And we, as the reader or the viewer, we come to that conclusion with her. And it feels like we've come that full circle.
yeah,
And
and
then we
that's why
see her fall back into him.
and that's why it's important to me that I don't think we should try to justify the relationship because it's clearly not supposed to be justified. We're
No.
supposed to look at it and we're supposed to say, this is wrong. We want her to go get out of this relationship.
And I think that's why it's so important, at least for me, to see it in Suicide Squad that that's how she should be portrayed. That's how their relationship should be portrayed. Like it's this crazy, psychotic, not okay thing. And I think that really needs to come across really clear, especially in times like this where movies like 50 Shades and Twilight are so popular and they have this so wrong idea of what is okay and what love is. And I think this really needs to be as shocking as it is in the comic books and the animated series so people can really wake up and be like, okay, no, this is not okay, and we need to understand that.
Hmm.
Which is why I said I'm glad we're not talking about real. I mean, it it like, okay. Removing myself from myself, like if I was sitting here listening to myself talk about this, I would be thinking, God damn, that person's gonna go hit a woman, and would just be astounded at me saying it. But that's why I'm glad we're not talking about real people. I mean, it's strange to me. I mean, like talking to both of you or anyone else I know, who's been in that kind of relationship. Excuse me. I can get their actual perspective. Like I can talk to them and find out, like, you know, that dude over there hit you. Why'd you go back to him? You can hear it. But with Harley, and the Joker. I mean, the only side of it you ever seem to get is Harley's, and finally she's getting to where she's acknowledged, she must still love him in some strange way, even if it's just she's been deluded over the years to the point that she has to. But you never really hear him say it. Like you never get his side of it, and it's strange to me, and I think that's part of what makes it ro- uh, romanticized is like I want to know. I want to like I actually want to know what keeps these two people together, even though realistically I understand there is no other way it could be other than he has completely unscrewed every screw in her brain and rewired her to where she cannot get away from him. Like it's weird, and I think that's why it's as compelling as it is, and I think that's why Harley Quinn has so many fans. As she and I've noticed that nearly everyone I've known who has been in an abusive relationship has looked at Harley and said, "I want to be her. I want to fix whatever problem she's made." And that's fascinating to me. Is that people look at her, someone who's clearly been through a lot of shit and is messed up, but they still look at her and say, that's the kind of person I want to be because she's strong and she gets up every day and she puts up with it and she gets away from it and then she goes back. Maybe that will help solve. It's a weird topic, I think, and it goes into a lot of uncomfortable territory to discuss, what is going on But I'm like you, Danny. I do sincerely hope that when Suicide Squad comes out, it's not just this lovey-dovey thing, and you actually see what's wrong. I mean, like watching The Dark Knight, with Heath Ledger's Joker. You can, unless you're stupid, you can see he's insane. He's way out there for whatever reason, made him that way. And I hope that they will actually show that for a change.
Mm.
I think like the most important thing is that Harley Quinn and the Joker, like I think the main thing is that they just portray that relationship as what it is. Insanity.
I, it's it's an. I'm trying to figure out how to put this. I mean, I can understand um wanting for someone that's been in an abusive relationship, wanting to be like Harley and to get away, but I'm not sure that everyone who is a Harley fan necessarily understands that or completely gets it. Maybe, and it's a very almost dangerous kind of thing where it could go either way, and it could either help someone or it could almost help them justify what's going on with their life and
That's
keep
true,
going.
but I mean that reality needs to exist in like the world. Like it needs to exist in a platform where people are the most interested. Like these things spiral from comic books, and comic books are what give us all of these great superhero movies, and these superheroes and these supervillains need to be human in order for us to really recognize with them. And like we need to understand that some of these themes and some of these different things, like we need to embrace them because we're not always going to see them in our day-to-day lives. We need to understand what they are, and we need to understand why they're wrong.
And that actually brings me to a topic. If you don't mind us stop talking about Suicide Squad for a little bit.
Actually, since you mentioned, also before we go any further, Danny,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if any of this upsets you.
No, it's fine.
Because like what I know about your past, I'm sorry.
I'm fine.
I really am. I want you to be okay. And I want everyone who even thinks they're involved in that kind of relationship to be okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, good. But anyway, Nick, earlier on, I remember you mentioned that you want to talk about how what was it? Stories and comic books suck now. I think we may have just kind of bled over into that without even trying to.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
actually did because Danny's actually brought up the point that I wanted to make. And um Danny, did you listen to all of our first episode together?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so going back to that, where we were talking about how John thought Spider-Man sucked, and I was saying I like Spider-Man's character and I think he's a great hero, and things like that. And um, most of my comic knowledge really comes from probably the cartoons of the 90s, and it's not that I didn't want to read the comic books. It's just I didn't have access to comics. I didn't have money for the comics, and so on and so forth.
And that's the same for me. I learned a lot about the comic books through watching TV because I just didn't have the money for the comics.
So I would say I'm more of a quote unquote casual comic fan than anything else.
Filthy casual.
But anyways, um,
Although I can't really talk because the last time that I specifically remember actually reading, like holding it in my hands and reading an actual comic was a Batman comic, and it was, oh God, at least 10 years ago. At least 10 years ago. Anyway, it was when Two Face had decided that he was now going to be known as Janus, and he was riding around with this bronze head mask thingy that was on dispensing. It was weird. I don't really remember it, but that's
Sounds really, really weird.
it was
sounds
great.
weird.
Like
Yeah.
And
beyond the realm of weird that comic books belong in.
I mean, like he had this big horse, and other than like the gold plated bronze, whatever color the helmet thing he had on was, all he wore was black and gray, and he was, I guess, trying to do Batman. I don't know. It was weird, but that was the last comic I specifically remember reading. And
The
before that, it was just picking up, like older issues of Spider-Man, because I used to read Spider-Man, and yeah, I
well, the last two that the actual comics that I had, my friend who was very very nice, he got me them and they were awesome gifts. So thank you for that,
Oh,
man.
fuck.
Huh?
Oh,
Good.
sorry. I'm playing WoW and I'm looking at my gear and I realize I have to get gems. Carry on.
Anyway, so so after our show,
how
I was like,
interested she is in you, Nick.
after our show, um, I was like, okay, I finally have a little bit of money. I'm gonna go get the Marvel subscription. That lets you see all the past comics and things like that. So I was like, woot, and I started reading, and I started way back at the beginning of Spider-Man. So way back in '60 Spider-Man, and I started reading, and it was corny, but it was fun. I was enjoying myself. Um, and somewhere along the lines on, I think it was a forum or something, I kept people, I kept seeing people post stuff about OMD, which was short for One More Day, or the acronym. And I was like, okay, what is this, and why are people so upset about it? So I go to look, and apparently Marvel, or someone in Marvel, and their infinite wisdom, I think it was someone named Casada or somebody, decided that Spider-Man was not interesting anymore because he was married and being a responsible adult, and he needed to be single again, and to be, swinging around and just dating all the women and things like that.
Spider-Man, the world's most popular swinger.
Wasn't like his entire like personality based on the fact that he can't get a girl and he's very awkward around girls, and the fact that he finally found happiness in that balance between being an
Yeah,
awkward person and then also suddenly having superpowers, like what, he can't be happy anymore?
yeah.
Well, it's basically Spider-Man's whole thing. Okay, the original Spider-Man was about being responsible and balancing having these great superpowers and protecting the ones he loves from,
Puberty.
well, and puberty too. I was getting to that, but anyways. Um, but basically it's about growing up and balancing, being what you want to be and being responsible to those you love and things like that. Which was a great story in my opinion. It's a good story. It's something that should be told, explored, And of course, as the comic got along in age, Spider-Man got older. He found people to be with, specifically Mary Jane, and around the 80s they got married. So they were married for about 2 decades. He'd been married since, I believe, 1986. No, 1985. Um,
Which just to add this in, I think it's interesting that Spider-Man's marriage lasted a lot longer than most real-world marriages do today.
That's
it
true.
it did, and this is the really weird part to me. That um um or here's my point basically is that Spider-Man was, and this was something you were complaining about, John, is that he was becoming a responsible adult, more or less. He was getting married, he had a job, like successful job, steady job. Um, there have been comics about Spider-Girl, which was supposed to be their kid, but they never brought that to fruition or something yet. Because the 90s happened and comics got really weird for a while. But anyways, so one more day, back to one more day. So basically what happens is they decide that we're gonna break up Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Now I ask you, how do they accomplish that? How do you
I'm
think
gonna
they
I'm gonna
accomplish that?
guess they killed her.
Nope.
I'm gonna guess. Um, I don't know. Let's see. We're talking about Marvel here, and Marvel likes to do their stories where they have some relevance to social issues of the time, and I'm gonna guess Mary Jane decided that she no longer liked the D and she liked the V.
You are wrong.
Damn it!
Any more ideas?
Um,
Alien?
alternate timeline?
Close. Apparently, Aunt May got shot, and Peter blamed himself. And he wanted to fix it and save her life. And he decided to make a deal with Mephisto, who is Marvel's version of the devil. So, we're talking about Peter Parker here, who is Spider-Man, who is one of the paragons of being responsible. Whether you agree that he is actually responsible or not is another matter. But we're
I
talking.
don't.
I know you don't. But anyways, we're talking about one of the goodiest two shoes characters that there is. So number one, he makes a deal with the devil. Well, actually, no, he refuses to make the deal with the devil. But then Mary Jane says we should hear him out. Then Mary Jane basically makes him make the deal with the devil. And the deal with the devil is that in order to save Aunt May, the very, very old Aunt May, who probably doesn't have that much longer to live anyways, and that actually told Peter Parker that she wanted to die so that she could be with his Uncle Ben. Apparently, the deal with the devil is that he wants to take away their marriage. So they retcon the marriage. The marriage never happens. Everything else stays the same. They live together for the entire time. But now they aren't married throughout any of that period of time.
That's
So
so weird. And that makes
basically,
no sense.
okay. Basically, you're saying that Spider-Man is exactly the same as he is now, only he's not married.
Yes. And
Which,
after the
which means that not only was Spider-Man initially boring and stupid, he's now boring and stupid, and he's just not married.
basically.
Then I just got a divorce. That's basically what happened. Like,
No,
Yes,
no, no.
he got a
It's not a
divorce.
divorce. They never got married in the first place. They didn't. They didn't go through the divorce process where they sit down and agree that it's not
Yeah,
working
but that's
out.
basically what happened. Like, of all of the things the devil could ask for, he's like, nah, I just don't want you to be married anymore.
It is among the stupidest comics that has ever been written, ever. It is widely hailed as the worst comic of all time
Like,
by
well, that would be a good idea.
I think that might actually be a dumber idea than the storyline I don't remember when this took place. I am so very sorry for this. But it was a storyline that the Green Goblin apparently has known for fucking
Oh,
ever.
oh, Gwen Stacy.
Do it?
The one with Gwen Stacy.
No, 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 no. This deals with Aunt May as well. Excuse me.
Hmm.
Anyway, apparently the Green Goblin has known for fucking ever that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he was able to figure out that Aunt May, is his aunt, and so the Green Goblin, since around the time that Spider-Man actually got his powers, I mean, realistically, Spider-Man would be 80, almost 80 years old, but like comic-wise, I think he's maybe 25, 30, somewhere around there. So
I think he's late 20s. Like, I think.
yeah. Excuse me. Again, we're talking, a decade, 2 decades, somewhere in that range in comic time that he's actually aged. And this entire time, according to this storyline, the Green Goblin has been wearing an Aunt May mask and pulls it off and is like, "Hi, Spider-Man, it's me." I I honestly think the storyline you just described is dumber than that.
And it's worse than I'm describing. It's actually worse. The plot line, the build up, everything about it is terrible and horrible.
That's
And
awful.
I was just amazed when I was reading it. And I was looking into basically what they did after with it. And just, it's basically Spider-Man going around flirting with women and getting laid or whatever. And
Wait. Did you just say that Spider-Man in the comic books is now Tobey Maguire dancing around the streets of New York City?
maybe I
Oh
haven't gotten
Lord.
to read them. I've just, been looking through in general, what's been happening.
That is incredibly frightening to me that arguably one of the most beloved comic book characters in history is now Tobey Maguire with his emo haircut and his leather jacket strutting down the street.
It's so very disturbing.
But okay, here's my overall point, though.
No offense, Tobey Maguire. You're a fantastic dancer.
Also, I like him as an actor as well. But anyways,
Not as Spider-Man.
he was okay in the first year. But anyways, what disturbed me really, beyond just Spider-Man, it being about Spider-Man, or it was that it completely undid all of the progress of Spider-Man from the 60s to the 90s. And what I started looking into this more, and I was looking at reading about different things. Basically since the mid 90s to now, really, is that comics have become awful. They have just become awful. I'm sure there are a couple of exceptions to the rule. I'm sure there are still a couple of good stories. And when I'm saying comics, I specifically am referring to DC and Marvel right now because those are and always have been the standards.
That's true. I mean, I
Um,
read the ones from Japan, and those are pretty decent, some of them.
yeah, and Dark Horse Comics has some really cool stories. But I'm specifically talking about Marvel and DC, and I started thinking about why this is happening and what is going on. Why are all these great stories, these great characters suddenly becoming just awkward imitations of what they are or have been?
Well, I mean, around the 80s and 90s, they started out with the movies and all the merchandising, and then the TV shows came along and all this different stuff. They're just being lazy in the original platform because they have all of this room to expand the story and what have you in these bigger, like broader audience platforms. They're just
Well,
lazy.
I think it's a much bigger problem than that, and it's a really interesting problem to me because I think that this is only occurring really, it only occurs in the comic industry because what's happening is you have to remember that these stories go back from the 60s, the 50s. How old is Superman? When did Superman first come?
Isn't Superman in the 40s?
Superman
Yeah.
is 76 and Batman is 75.
You
No, they're
sure?
older than
Yes,
that.
I'm sure. They're about a year apart.
I think they're older than that.
No, they're not. Last year was Batman's 75th anniversary.
Superman
Uh-huh.
first appeared in Action Comics #1, June 1938.
Yeah, there we go. Your
And
math is
Batman was
off now.
39. They're a year apart.
You said 75 and 76.
Yeah, 75 years ago. Last
No,
year.
no, you were saying like 1975. That's the way it sounded.
Oh, no. You asked how old they were, and I said they're 75 years old.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Three-quarters of a century old.
Yeah, yeah. And, okay, if you think
Almost
about
as old as you.
it, if you think about it, if you're telling a story for that long, what happens eventually? Um, Eventually the character grows up, they learn their lessons, and there's no more story to tell. There isn't. I mean, you're basically just repeating the same story after a certain point.
That's why that's kind of why I like mangas from Japan. Like there is an ending. Like it does stop. I mean, there's 500 issues of this particular like comic, but it does have
One,
an ending, and I think there needs to be an ending.
And yeah, that's something that it's only in the comic industry because they're the only ones that do it. They will not. I mean, they'll kill, quote unquote, kill a character, but they always bring them back. They they don't end the story for a specific character, and
Well, I
as
mean, there's
long as
never a resolution because there's always some other threat. But I mean, they're gonna the threats are gonna stop coming. Like in Gotham, Batman's always gonna have a villain to fight, but eventually he's gonna run out of villains because everyone's just gonna not want to fuck with Batman, and that's
well,
just where it's gonna end.
well, it's not. Well, actually, Batman's a really great example of what they should be doing. Because what they should be doing is they should be letting the character go away or die off and have a replacement coming, which happened with Batman Beyond, which I think is one of the most brilliant comics, or at least it was until they got rid of what's his name?
Terry.
Uh, yeah, they got rid of Terry, which is
Also,
completely.
not to derail the topic, but I think we accidentally may have gone over the hour that we were supposed to.
Probably.
Like we're coming up on 2 hours.
I want to
So
ask you, John.
I'll try to
do it.
wrap up.
Well,
I'll try to
I mean,
wrap up.
we can keep talking, or like we could like pin this right here and pick up. Like I don't know. Whatever you guys want to do.
Well,
I
let
want
me
to
make a
rant a
final
little.
point, and then we'll continue next week.
Okay.
I want to rant a little. Anyway, so my point is, and there, I've been looking at all the major events in DC and Marvel, like the New 52. A lot of people hate it. The Infinite Crisis. A lot of people hated it. Civil War in Marvel. A lot of people hated it. One More Day. Obviously, people hate that. It's just the comics are, and what they're doing is the problem that they're having is they're trying to bring in new readers, and the only way they can bring in new readers is by making the comics accessible. The way you make comics accessible is you basically restart the comic. The problem is once you restart the comic, you lose your old readers. So the comics are basically trying to keep their continuity while making it completely accessible to new readers. obviously this doesn't work well.
Yeah, it's obviously failing.
And that's why we have a lot of the problems that we have today. When we're looking at comics and even comic movies, comic TV shows, and all these things, we're looking, and that's not even getting into the different writers, the different editors, who's saying what and how things should be. And comics have just become this jumbled mess. And until they decide what they're going to do, whether it's completely restart everything and just, go fresh without trying to be continuous with anything else, or to keep the continuity and, develop new characters, develop a new Spider-Man to replace the old Spider-Man. Because that's what they could have done, especially with Spider-Girl, who is supposed to be Spider-Man's and Mary Jane's daughter. They could have started a new comic with her, being Spider-Girl, you know, taking over the mantle from her father, and so on and so forth. And it's just, it's almost infuriating because we've had things like Teen Titans, Young Avengers, stuff like that, where we have these characters that can take over from their, mentors, fathers, whatever. And it's like the comic industry just won't let these characters die. And
Well,
unless
they're
they
afraid of
start letting these,
change.
well, yeah, and I can understand that, but the longer that this goes on, I think the more that the comic industry is just gonna go down the drain, more or less.
Which, like, I see. I kind of hate that prospect, even though for a long time now I've acknowledged it's probably going to happen. Um, but I think in a weird way, and again, this is really weird. I think what may or may not happen is no, wait, actually, hang on, let me back up for a second. The best analogy right now, because we have, for example, the Gotham TV series, and then there's um, um, Arrow and uh, Flash and Daredevil and
Agents
all
of
the
S.H.I.E.L.D.
yes, Agents of Shield. Goddamn, Agents of Shield. Yeah. Since everything seems to be moving, excuse me, more towards this more accessible generation who doesn't want to go, like I did growing up, to a comic book shop, which we used to have here a long time ago, and go, get an actual book, little cheap book, that you can read and look at it. People want to watch it on TV, and I think what may happen to the comic industry is that like I'm kind of fine with that as long as we're getting new material at some point in time, which we probably won't because we live in the age of reboots. But
Well,
I think generally what may happen to that is what happened to Family Guy. Of all things, Family Guy, because anyone who's reasonably able to look back at the history of that TV show realizes that the first season has now been reused for like 9 seasons. Just
Hmm.
little elements of that has been strung out over and over again, compared to something like The Simpsons, which has been on for nearly 30 years. Nearly 30 years. And I don't recall any storylines off the top of my head on The Simpsons that repeated themselves.
No, I mean there were reoccurring characters and stories that continued, but nothing that was done again.
well, and even if I think even if they move to a more media based on TV and with movies and things like that, we're still going to run into this problem eventually because For instance, look at Spider-Man or Batman, or where they keep having to reintroduce him, redo the stories, and I mean they're different in their own ways, but or for instance, look at the old cartoons, the '90s cartoons, Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, which we all loved growing up. They were all excellent cartoons. But when I was with my little brother, and he was watching, or we were just looking at the new Spider-Man cartoon, and it was absolutely terrible. We hated it. It was just god awful. And the more that they keep trying to make it new, like put a fresh coat of paint on it, the worse it's going to be. And I don't know. It's just Marvel and DC are just continuing this problem that they're going to have over and over again.
Well, they're just kind of lazy. They don't want to change anything, and they think it's just easier to do the movies or the TV shows where they can reintroduce their old characters over and over and over again, and people are always going to go watch, and people are always going to give them their money, but it's like that's
Well,
not quality, and they're giving out quantity, and it's not quality.
I'm not sure that people are always going to go watch or keep watching, because I think eventually they're just going to run themselves into the ground. And
No,
well,
no.
Well, I mean, I think the same argument can be made for Blizzard. I mean, Blizzard recycles content like it's nobody else's business. But they're
well,
still going. There are people who still go back to it. I think there's always going to be like a really dedicated circle that always goes back to these things. But they're going to come to a point where they're like, this is not as successful, and they're going to try and reboot again. So it's just going to be an endless cycle.
even
See,
so,
see,
but think about the mid '90s where the comic industry almost went bankrupt. They're not safe. Do not bet on them being completely safe.
No, no.
see. I think that, and again, I think this is going to be about the last few minutes because we're dangerously close to 2 hours. We really need to work on this being an hour, although I don't think it hurts for 2 hours. But anyway, um, I think Blizzard has kind of already reached that point in time where they're ready to reboot just a tiny bit because the Warcraft movie coming out next year is Warcraft story that came out 20 years ago in
Yeah.
real life.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway, any final points? And we'll close the show for this week.
Just if my advice to any writer or author or movie maker, you have to let your story die eventually. There's lots of stories for you to tell. Eventually, you have to tell a new story.
Also, good luck Rangers in Game 7 tonight. Yay!
Yay? Yay.
Okay, well, I guess that will take care of Radio Tokyo for May 30th, 2015.
Oh, and Kung
And
Fury is awesome.
what?
Kung Fury is awesome.
It is. Everyone needs to go watch Kung Fury. It's on YouTube. It's free. It's a half hour. You will not regret it. And
Go now. Stop
yeah,
listening to us.
like as soon as this is over with,
No,
look at
turn
it.
us off right
Awesome.
now. Just
No,
turn us
no,
off.
no, 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 no! Don't turn us off.
It is worth it for Kung Fury.
No, no, Nick, damn it, stop! Don't turn off Radio Tokyo for Kung Fury, but just wait, like 3 seconds after we're done, and then go watch it, and then have the time of your life. And yeah, next week we'll have an amazing time again, and hopefully we have not discussed everything there is to discuss about this topic.
We'll find something.
Yeah.
Nick, you're the reason we can't have nice things.
He is.
Sorry? Maybe. No.
You're fine.
Not really.
I'm pretty sure there'll be something interesting next week. I don't know right now. I can't predict that far in the future. But anyway, midweek show should be on this week, and then next week doing the show next week, and yeah, same as always, only it gets better every time, like Kung Fury. So yeah, this is Jonathan, and goodbye from me. And Danny and Nick, you want to say goodbye, or you just not care?
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, goodbye, everyone. See you next week.